Good afternoon and welcome. We're looking forward to a delightful presentation from my senior and longtime colleague, Rick Tyler. I would guess, Rick, this is what, your 38th?
Yeah.
38th year at McPherson College. If you don't know it, he's our longest tenured faculty and holds his age extraordinarily well.
Yeah.
I doubt there is anyone in the room who has not been to one of Rick's presentations. And because you all know him, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail, but do want to share that it's going to be fun to have that behind-the-scenes look from the producer and the designer of what you're going to see. So without further ado, Rick.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. I've been putting off coming to do one of these presentations ever since they started because I always taught at 1:30 to 2:30. And so Steve got me during the summer when I had no classes, so yeah. When he asked me to do this, I said, sure, I'll do it. What are you going to talk about? I said, I don't have a clue. And then Elsie got a hold of me and said, Rick, I need a blurb for the Village Voice. Was that it? Yeah. And okay. So what I want to do today is to kind of go back and show you what props and set dressing do to shows. That a lot of times people will look at the play and they go, ha, 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 and that's it. I actually had one student who was in my stagecraft class asked when the boxes and crates arrive. And I said, what boxes and crates? Well, all the sets and costumes, don't those come with it when you do the play? No, those don't come with it. And so, that we have a fun time pulling all that together from a set amount of things that we have on stock. Last summer, my daughter went to a play with a friend of hers that had gone to McPherson College that her friend's husband was in, and she said, don't expect a Rick Tyler set. And I said, what did she mean? She says, I don't know, Dad, I guess you have a reputation that there are Rick Tyler sets and then there are other sets. And so she asked her friend what she meant by that, and she said, most people just do what they have to do for the play. Rick Tyler lets you move into it. So anyway, so what I'm going to do is show you pictures of, I actually have slides, because JD has all the new shows on discs and he doesn't share them with me. So, so I have my old slides, the old-fashioned way. Appreciate that. Thank you. And part of this presentation I did for a state thespian conference a number of years ago on dressing a set, showing high school kids how to pick props and set dressings and those kind of things. And I've added a few things into that. And then if you have questions, please feel free to stop me whenever. When I teach, it's just, back and forth and we have a conversation. So, okay, ready? Okay, here we go. Wrong one. Here we go. Okay, this is a set for a show that was done many years ago. Roberta's grandson, JJ, was in this show. And the play is Lost in Yonkers, and it takes place above an ice cream candy store in the 1940s. And it calls for a living room, a bedroom door, a hallway, a bathroom door, a front entrance, windows looking out over the street, dining room, and there's a kitchen back in there. And so that's the set. So when the kids build something, they think that's what they're going to do. That's what you have to have for the set, okay? And then this is the set with the furniture that the play calls for. And so as my daughter's friend would say, this is not a Rick Tyler set. This is everybody else's set. Because it calls for a sofa that three people can sleep on, a chair, a radio, a couple pillows, and a place for the grandmother to throw chicken soup down her grandson's throat, okay? And that's what you have to do the show. And so when you go to a lot of productions, that's what you get, okay? And so now I want to show it to you with all the set dressing. That's what you have to have. And I guess this is what makes it a Rick Tyler set. Okay? And so that all this other stuff isn't necessary to do the play. But it is so necessary to give the flavor of the play and to give an idea of who are the people that inhabit this space. And when I was a little boy, my dad was from Alta Vista, Iowa, and his parents, his mother, had an aunt or a sister that lived with him, Aunt Hulda. We called her Aunt Hut because we could never say Hulda. And in her bedroom, I was always fascinated. She had vases of peacock feathers. Don't know why, but I thought any good German lady had to have peacock feathers. And so on this set, in honor of my Aunt Hulda, there are 3 containers of peacock feathers. Okay, and so the things that make those connections, okay. As we go through this presentation, I want you to notice a few set pieces that you will see over and over and over and over and over. This chair and sofa, I thank Jim Dodson for those. The college got a huge gift of things from somebody's estate, and all their furniture sat in the lobby and the hallway of Bittinger Hall for about 2 or 3 months before they had the estate sale. And I said, is there anything in there that I might want for the theater department? And he said, I don't know, go look. And I said, what I'm hunting for is kind of an old camelback sofa that can be used in a lot of different time periods. He says, well, go look. And I said, I found it, Jim, I want it. And he said, you mean the one that has all the cat scratching and the fabric's ruined? I said, yeah, that's the one I want. He said, it's yours, take it. This and this. And they've been covered probably 15, 20 times. I think the last show they were used in, they actually broke one of the legs, so I don't know if they're gone now or not. But there are a lot of pieces. This old radio came from somebody's basement at the corner of Northview and Main Street in a duplex. She was getting rid of stuff. She didn't want it. I'll take it. That's been in a lot of plays. These 2 pieces, this round table I got at Kyle's Discount for next to nothing years and years ago. The light fixtures came out of either Arnold or Klein, one of those, when they were tearing things down. This fabric on this curtain, Una Yoder had when I was a student in a box. And I've always wanted to use them on a set, never had. I think she used them in Glass Menagerie, and they got put back in a box. And so when I said I'm going to use them sometime, so I thought, good. So lots of those things are used over and over and over and over again. So anyway, that's with the set dressing on it.
So Rick, you're saying we have some furniture we want to get rid of, just check with you.
Yeah, the kicker is it's got to work in more than one time period. It can't be so specific that I can't use it over and over again. And I'll show you some of those as we go through this. These kind of things, they don't show from stage, but it sure helped the kids in the set imagine what was up there. When Carlene was in grad school, she was given a Siamese cat by her major professor, and that Siamese cat is in every show. This is not it. It's hidden someplace else, but it stands up like this, and it's in every show. And people who know it's there will hunt for it. And so a lot of these things are family pictures, things that have been down in props. This old fan someone had given us, and it was all covered. It's actually a solid brass fan blades on it. And they cleaned it all up and said, ooh, nice, and it works. There's that radio. It does not work, but it looks great on stage. And it's big, and it's, yeah. So there, Rick buys cheap carpets when they're on sale at Walmart or Lowe's or wherever else going on. There's 2 of the peacock vases. The clock on the wall, Jill Brax had it and she didn't like it anymore, so I'll take it. And that coat tree, when I became a student at McPherson College, they had painted it pink for a production of The Mad Woman of Chaillot. So we stripped all the pink paint off of it, and it's a nice oak coat rack. Okay. See the kitchen back there where that little cart is? Only people on the house left side of the theater could see back in there, but somebody could see it, so it got finished. Okay. And there's that. We even had a fan outside the dining room window so that the curtains blew in the wind. It was a hot summer evening. Okay. There's JDA in bed with Parker Johnson and Brian Grossbaugh. And there he is being force-fed by his grandmother. Okay, yeah. When you design sets, everybody says, oh, that's really nice, but I said it's never complete till you get the actors in it. That a lot of times, and there's a couple of these, they look so empty. There's nothing, I mean, there's so much empty space on the floor. That's because there aren't any actors there, and they're the ones that balance the design. And so sometimes we always have to be aware that, oh, it's not done yet until the actors get in there and start playing around with things. Okay. This is for play. Just 2 guys were in this show, Adam Smith and Chris Bishalia. And it's Visiting Mr. Green, and it's that same chair, same sofa. And we have this lovely little refrigerator back here from the 1930s, and it's been in more shows. It fits all kinds of time periods. It finally died this year after effective gamma rays in Man on the Moon Marigolds. But we're still doing it. These 2 chairs were from Dick and Connie Nichols, from their old kitchen on Lakeside. And again, light fixtures. I think that one was from Arnold Hall. And then somebody gave me this lovely crystal chandelier, and it's been in many, many productions. So fun things like that. Oh, yeah. And here's a close-up. It's amazing if you just put different fabric on them. There's that refrigerator. When you do kitchens, you have to build all those cabinets. I only finished the ones that actually have to open and close. The rest of them are all fake. You couldn't get anything in them. Okay. And then out the window, there's got to be things across the street, and so you see the building across the street. He was a really messy old guy. And there's Adam Smith. I put a little bit of nose put in at the end of his nose, changed the look of his face entirely. And the city skyline, styrofoam with Christmas tree lights stuck partly through it, and only painted as far as the audience can see it. If it doesn't show, we don't paint it. Okay. This is Bus Stop. This is done in Mingenbach Theater. And again, there's my favorite refrigerator. Okay. And finding things around town, the Methodist Church has this lovely set of old restaurant china. White with the red. Oh, I borrowed it twice from them now for shows. And so part of getting props and those kind of things are finding out where things are at and borrowing them and getting them back to people in a timely fashion so you can use them again, and keeping that list of things in your head. Hard ones on this one were a payphone. You know how hard it is to find an old payphone? They're hard. My folks had one of the wind-up ones on the wall, and my brother had it for years, and he gave it away. I thought, you idiot, I would love to have that thing. But, oh well. Best laid plans. But that floor is individual pieces of masonite cut and painted and then screwed into place. Because when you do things in Mingenbach, people can actually see the floor. On stage in Brown, you'll notice all the carpets don't match because you can't see what they look like. And so it just kind of gives the padding, and you can see across, and you know there's something there, but you can't really tell what color it is. And so it doesn't matter. So we cheat a lot in theater. One of the hardest things in stagecraft class is teaching the kids what they can cheat on and what they can't cheat on. And that's Mary Hughes on that telephone. That was hard to find. And that's Amanda Snell there in front. She was a freshman in college. And that's one of the Stover girls with her hair dyed blonde. There's that lovely china that I like to borrow. And there I am, much younger, with Mary. So, all right. This was a homecoming show a number of years ago. We brought 8 women back. It's called the Octet Bridge Club, and it was 8 Irish sisters that played bridge every Friday night. And Mary, you just missed yourself. Oh, okay. And J.D. Bowman was working someplace else and came back and directed it. So he was my guest director and the 8 women that came. And there's that sofa, but we didn't recover it for this one. He's still there. These 2 chairs used to sit in the president's office. It had ugly blue and green floral print on them. And we took those. We made the fireplace over here. This piano came from the education building at the Church of the Brethren. They had all those painted pianos that had that speckled paint that they sprayed on them. And they're trying to get rid of them, so I took one for a prop piano, and I actually painted it, and I got all done, and I lifted up the top. I matched the original texture of it. I was kind of surprised. I thought, not so bad. There's the chair. And then these 2 chairs, this one and there's another one there someplace, we bought years and years ago downtown, thinking that they would be willing to, if I bought a couple pieces, they would loan me pieces. Didn't happen. I bought those 2, and they never loaned me anything. Furniture stores are real leery about that. Antique stores are even worse. They don't like to loan things, and I don't blame them. And especially after working with JD, because no piece of furniture is safe when JD directs, because people stand on it, they jump on it, they fall over it. They're cruel to it, so we learned. But I knew Una Yoda played bridge, and I knew she had card tables. And so I went and talked to Wilbur. I said, "Do you still have Una's old card tables?" "Yeah." "May I borrow them?" He said, "You can have them." So these are Una's bridge tables. So there are some fun things like that, that if you keep your ears open and remember things, you can get away with things. And then there's supposed to be a picture in Act 2. Act 1 opens with the sisters having their picture taken for the newspaper. And so we actually had to have the picture of the sisters hanging on the wall. And so some things like that. So lots of set dressing pieces that make it happen. The Act 1 takes place prior to World War II, and the sisters are all talking, and they set up their relationships and all kinds of stuff. And Jenny Williams was in the show, and so we actually had authentic piano music from the 2 time periods. Act 2 is 10 years later on Halloween, and it's after the war, and the sisters are talking about what's happened to them. And so it's a real interesting thing. The other thing that was difficult on this one, they're a good Irish Catholic family. I don't have a lot of Catholic stuff in my prop department, but one of the professors at the time was, so I said, she gave me a crucifix and a piece of Catholic art that's above the fireplace, all kinds of fun things that we could then add in. And so, yeah. But notice there's a braided rug in the floor, and there's another one over there, and they don't match anything in the set, but you can't tell that from out front. What?
The chairs and the couch, you actually...
It's the Rick Tyler method, hot melt glue and staples. You don't,
stays together
for 2 weekends.
so they can sit in it.
They can sit it and stay on it. And we actually take the cushions off and sew those and drop the cushions in and then tack them back so they don't come out. It really depends on how active the show is. But yeah, I can do a sofa in about 7 yards and this chair in about 5. Oh, if I'm left alone in an afternoon.
You don't want to go into a side business.
No, no. Someone says, oh, you could do all kinds. I said, no, this has to look good from 30 feet and only lasts 2 weekends. Okay, and so things like that, yeah. So there's the fireplace that we made. And it shows up later. Found this vase, this gray vase out at Walmart. There were two of them, and then I had a match set, and they were wonderful. They worked in any time period because you couldn't tell what they were. And then one of the kids broke one of them. So now I have a single. Always try to have live plants on stage if it's people that have a lot of life. They're life-giving. And flowers are there. This is part of the birch tree that used to be at the corner of Maxwell and Euclid in front of Rebecca and Dayton's duplex. And it was being cut down, and I asked Lamont, I said, can I have a couple chunks of that for the theater? Sure, here, take them. And those birch logs have been in more shows. Okay, things like that. Okay, here's my statue of the Virgin Mary on the fireplace, a piece of art up there. So yeah, all those fun little pieces that you find around town, and if you know the story behind them, to me it means a whole lot more. I can sit and look and get all kind of teary-eyed and, oh yeah, that was so-and-so's. So there's piano music from Jenny. It's a picture of my dad in the Navy on top of the piano. And there's the sisters, part of them. This is Shannon Kirshner, Kelly Thaxton. That's Candy Krein Schneider. That's Michael Schneider's wife, Candy. That's Catherine Whitaker and Jenny Williams. And Carlene is back there, and who's the other one? Somebody else. Get them all from another angle. But yeah, so the 8 ladies, and there was one guy in the show, and he was only in the first 2 minutes of the show. He was the newspaper man that took their picture. Okay, this is a production of the Children's Hour, done in Mingenbach. We had done it once in Brown Auditorium on stage with the audience on stage, and then we did it years later in Mingenbach. And so, odds and ends of pieces. This came from Walmart, the lamp. Chairs were from some building on campus years and years ago when they closed down Arnold and Klein and all those. I confiscated lots of old oak chairs and things like that. Matching lights here from, they were real inexpensive, like $7 a piece kind of thing, and another lamp. But when you do things in the round in Mingenbach, you have to keep everything really low to the ground, and so you can't have a lot of stuff up in the air. And so the set dressing and stuff really is more dependent upon the little things you can put on top of things, like papers and newspapers and rugs and those kind of things that don't get in the way. And so, yeah. All those little girls, evil children. Evil children. And there is Act 2. This is the grandmother's house. And there's Mary again. Golly, Mary. Good time you came today. And those are those same 2 chairs. There's that round table again. And this was just when Fruits of the Spirit was opening up downtown, Jessica Lundberg. And I went down and I said, here are some containers. Could you fill them with fresh flowers for me? And she did it like that much money just to get her name in the program and to know she had started. So all the flowers here are real. And in Mingenbach, it's like, people could smell them. When the mums came out, they said, it's fall, there's mums. I said, very good. So yeah, things that we're starting to lose now, that were old rotary telephones. Because in so many shows, people pull them off of counters and they drop on the floor over and over again, and they're falling apart. And so things like that are hard to get a hold of that actually still have all their working pieces on them. But yeah. So this was a set that came from Walmart, one of those assemble with 2 pieces of, yeah. You get a coffee table, a library table, and 2 nightstands for next to nothing. And there it is. There's that chandelier again. Okay. And some things are actually real potatoes, real vegetables, when the delivery boy comes in the third act to bring the teachers food. And I don't know why this one even made it in. This is the first musical review we did when J.D. wasn't even, he was an alum coming back to direct it, and then he got the job the next year. But, oh, I know why it's in here, because sometimes we have to actually make props. And so here, this is a book report on Peter Rabbit from Your Good Man, Charlie Brown. And to make the kids look younger, we made the big pencils. And so you take a piece of big round dowel and then get on a grinder and start putting a point on it so they can have their oversized pencils. And this was from Once on This Island, which is set in the Caribbean. And this Rick Tyler never turns down gifts. Priscilla down at the Cook's Nook had these oversized flowers one year, and nobody bought them. She said, "Rick, would you want these?" Of course. No, I had no idea what I've ever used them for, but these are all mounted on blocks of 2x12 that were painted black and just stuck on the stage floor when the kids came in, and it gave us that Caribbean look. Thank you, Priscilla. So finding things and just, I'll take anything. It'll be in the back room for years, but eventually we might use it. This year I was at Michigan State, and they have a summer theater program down by the river on campus, and they were doing a production of Our Town. "Rick, can you design it?" And I said, "You need to design Our Town? It's 2 ladders and 2 tables and 4 chairs. They said, "No, we want to deconstruct Our Town." I said, "Oh." He said, "I want all the costumes in white, and I want something fun and bright with the set. And all the props that they don't use, I don't want them to use them, but I want to see them." Okay. And it was outside, and so everything had to be taken. That stayed every night, but then everything else had to be taken away. So people came and they sat. They had to leave aisles for the actors to come and go. And they brought their supper, and they sat there. And the best thing about the show was that in the third act, when everybody's dead and they're in the graveyard and all the people are just sitting there and supposed to be dead, the mosquitoes come out at night on the river. It's just the dead people are sitting there swatting mosquitoes. But so there it is with the set pieces they need, the ladders for the second story, and then all those prop set dressing pieces that they talk about throughout the show. And so horse collars and picture frames and all kinds of things that are there. And they talk about how I can't remember which one of was the doctor or the editor that goes to Gettysburg every summer and traipses around trying to recreate scenes from the Civil War and all kinds of that stuff going on. And that's a scene from the show, and they're in white. And some of the costume pieces were in the still lives in the back, and they would just put them on as they came on stage. And notice the rest of the actors are always visible in the back, and so they had to be careful what they did back there because they were distracting. But one of the things that he did was he wanted people to comment on the show, and so when George and Emily are having their big confrontation, love-making scene in the soda shop, both sets of parents are watching. And he would ask questions about, is our town such a great place to be born into? What about the Polish kids that were born the other side of the track? Is our town a great place for them to grow up? And so he was constantly throwing those things at the actors. So yeah, it was kind of fun. This is Love Letters, which is a show that just 2 people sit and read. Letters back and forth to each other. Notice any familiar pieces yet? The vases, chandelier, fireplace, 2 chairs, sconces, and probably the same fake flowers. And one of the rugs. Okay, yeah. And so just by rearranging them, painting them a little bit different, same thing gets to be used over and over again. And hopefully, are you aware of all these pieces being the same when you come see shows? No? Okay. Sometimes?
We're happy to have all the space you have nowadays as compared to what you have when you started.
Yeah, we are. I had pictures of when I first started. I found some. I like, oh, that's all the room we had? Yeah, it's kind of scary. And that's it with the actors in it. Yeah. Yeah. And actually, those little things that the scripts are on, I didn't throw them away after this production because they just did it this year at Valentine's Day. I found those for them to rest their scripts on that we had built. This is a production of Any Number Can Die. It's a spoof on murder mysteries. And it's probably one of the most involved sets we've done. That both of these pictures, people had to stand behind and look, and so eyes moved. And somebody gets hung upside down in the fireplace. And then there's a door that opens in the fireplace, and a gun pokes out and shoots somebody. This opens up, and a guy's hung in here, and this thing turns. At the end of the show, containers above the piano open up, and all this money falls out onto the set. There are so many hidden compartments in this thing. It took forever to put it all together. But we went down and bought a set of consignment furniture from Kyle's and got a sofa, a chaise lounge, a love seat, and then there's a matching chair back in here, all for $800. I hit pay dirt. And I've used pieces of them ever since. And so every once in a while I will spend some money on something that I know I can use. And so here's that same chair from the president's office, now in blue. And then the kids almost killed me because it was supposed to be bleached by the sun coming in this window. And so I threw bleach all over it. They said, well, how else are you going to get that to happen if you don't do it? And they said, you actually did that? And I said, yes. But notice the mismatched carpets again everywhere. And tables and things that have been in other shows. So yeah, it's kind of fun to take those pieces and see how you can constantly rearrange them. There's that piano again. Okay. And the sofa, or there's the chair, not the sofa, but the chair. And a different fireplace. Oh, and this happened right after, I think Hovis has moved into the president's house, and the furniture that was left there could be gotten rid of finally. They didn't have to keep it any longer. And so I got the hutch and a couple of other sideboards and things, and this is the first time I got to use them. So, that chaise lounge will be in the first show this year. And a Stover and a Tyler. This is Neil Simon's Brighton Beach Memoirs. Unique show because the whole house and the front yard and the backyard are all supposed to be on stage at the same time. And so, front porch, come in the front door, come down, or go upstairs. And living room, dining room, kitchen. And guess what's in that kitchen? That refrigerator, you betcha.
How far in advance do you start planning and envisioning?
The first 4 or 5 shows this year are designed on my desk right now. So I've got time to let them sit and then I'll change them. Yeah. So there it is from the other side. There's the window in the kitchen, and there's the refrigerator. There's that radio, the chair, the lamp without the shade. And the upstairs 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. Twin beds for the 2 boys and then twin beds for the 2 girls. It's nice when you know people in residence life. Lamont Rothrock. Old dorm beds that were in storage someplace. Yep. Old tennis racket from somebody hanging on the wall. And an old roller skate. And there's that fan that was solid brass on the top of the roof. Yeah. And I think the dishes aren't period, but nobody could see what the dishes were from stage. but there had to be real food. And so there is a prop kitchen in the basement of the theater so that they can get prop food and not interfere with the first nighter's meal being served. So a lot of times they'll do the prop food down in the basement. This is a production of The Rainmaker, and there are 3 sets on stage at the same time. The main kitchen of the farmhouse, and then on your left is the sheriff's office, and on your right is the haymow. And so there's the kitchen, or the living dining area. And there's the sheriff's office. And that's the haymow. So just dividing them up. But a lot of the same pieces we've seen over and over again, and things that we have, bushel baskets and crates and buckets and ropes and, yeah. We have this big barrel. I have no idea where it came from, but I used it in a number of shows. We're going to use it in one of the shows this year again, On the Verge, our 4th show. And there they are. That hall tree, and yeah. And then things like, I actually think it was Carlene's mother's. She inherited all kinds of stuff from the Spears.
Yes.
And Rick inherited a lot of that stuff with the theater department because no one else wanted it. So all kinds of things. And then Crimes of the Heart, the second time we did it, we've done it 3 times now. And again, having a kitchen, having a stove, there's the refrigerator, light fixtures, all those same kinds of things used over and over again. And a lot of my family's pictures are hanging on the wall. My great-grandmother is in the oval frame. She's been in a lot of shows. My grandparents' wedding pictures have been in shows. My folks' wedding pictures have been in shows. So many of Carlene's relatives' pictures are on the wall. Things like that. I used to go to the museum and borrow them, and then actually once in a while one would fall, and then I'd feel bad, so I stopped doing that. I loved it when the library still had all their paintings that you could check out. I loved that, and then they got rid of all those. Yeah. And there they're chasing one of the characters by the window, and so of course there has to be something outside the window, so we pulled a bunch of garland, a bunch of wisteria off the pergola in our backyard and draped it up there, and it filled in very nicely. So yeah. And there's the refrigerator, and you notice whenever it opens on stage, there's always a light on. The light comes on. Because I've seen so many shows and they open the refrigerator and there's no light, and I thought, who has a refrigerator without a light in it? So, here we go. This is Arsenic and Old Lace, that furniture I bought from Kyle's Discount. There's the sofa, and the set was purple to go with it. And this is one of those, to me, that seems very empty for as big as it is, but there's a lot of action. They carry bodies in and out, bring them into all kinds of things. The character that thinks he's Teddy Roosevelt has to charge up San Juan Hill, and actually has to go down and dig the locks in the canal, the Panama Canal in the basement. And it takes place in broad daylight, and a lot of stuff in this show at night. And so lots of windows to let that night light in. Oh, that is a series of platforms that we have and staircases, and we're just putting them all together and then covering the front so you can't see what it is. And then trying to come up with creative ways of doing railings so they all look a little bit different. So this one is just slats of 1 by 1 with beveled ends and stuck on there. And that window on the left is where they bring the dead bodies into the window seat and store them. And I think the sideboard there came from the president's house with the flowers on it. And you've seen that carpet hundreds of times by now. And there's the front door. And there's with actors on it. That's Brant Bussey in the Boris Karloff character role. I think that's Mary, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. With Tobias? Is that Mark?
Yes.
in a bald cap. And there's Alex poking his head over the back of the sofa as Teddy Roosevelt. And there he is in his pajama bottoms and his morning coat. Yeah, as Mr. President. But things like that, silver teapots and coffee pots and those kind of things. They're hard to come by. We have a really nice one, but the lid is broken off, and it's going to cost more to have it repaired than the pot's worth. So if you know of anybody that has any of those kinds of things, let me know. Yeah. Then this is HMS Pinafore. And not a lot of props for this one. I threw this one in just because it's a fun costume show. A couple of light fixtures that we were given, sitting there on either side of the door. But this is one of those shows that, if you know Gilbert and Sullivan, it's what's underneath that's really important, what they're making fun of. And so the costumes were what's underneath. So the ladies and gentlemen were all in period undergarments, with their parasols and they each got to pick. I had designs of like 4 or 5 different women's costumes and men's costumes, and they each got to pick how they wanted to be exposed. And so some of the guys have t-shirts that come down, some are athletic shirts, some are wider, and there was one brave soul that went without a shirt. Most of the guys didn't want to do that. But anyway, so there's the men, and there's some of the ladies. I think that's Mary. I think you were the only one that had the pink ruffled things up here. Yeah. I didn't know this was going to be a Mary Hughes show. This is good. This is a show. This is God's Favorite. It's the story of Job, created by Neil Simon. And Act 1, very, very wealthy family on Long Island. Here's an intruder. See those candlesticks? Any of you brethren folks know where those came from? Church, those are the old altar candlesticks that never get used. I said, is anybody using these? No. May I? Yes. So those are there. Chandeliers, all that kind of stuff. But this show was all done in black and gold. And so we used a lot of brass and that kind of, and Act 1, they're very, very wealthy, and so we had these huge paintings all in gold frames hanging. There were no walls, just big columns. And then in Act 2, they start losing their money, and so all the paintings are gone. They've sold them off. And in Act 3, the whole house is destroyed and is burnt down. And so finding ways to get rid of things. See, there it is with the paintings gone and the plants are all gone. Things are starting to disappear. There's a crate now where a chair used to be. They're starting to lose their money. And then in Act 3, it's all destroyed and there's smoke coming out of it. And, yeah. What?
How do you do smoke?
Fog machine. Just before the curtain opens. Yeah. So, but something like that, then where do you find a nice piece of wood like that as a walking stick? So yeah, keep your eyes open for all kinds of things. And this is The King and I. And this one was unique because of having to come up with props that are more of an Eastern flavor, Asian as opposed to Western. And so, oh, and this backdrop is in there. That's another one I used over and over again. I designed this set, that backdrop, when I did Vassar Playhouse up by Topeka. And that was the first time I did that. And then when Hunan's restaurant went in, we did this in shades of brown, and it was over on the west side of town, and when they moved here, it was up for a long, long time, and they finally took it down. I have no idea what happened to it, so this is the 3rd time it's been painted. And so this is in the garden sequence when the young lovers, hello young lovers, wherever you are. And I thought, how do I do this, make it fun? Well, Fruits of the Spirit had these really bizarre little velvet things in green and purple. And they had this price tag, I don't know, I think $5, $6 a piece. And I was in there one day, I said, Jessica, can I borrow those? And she let me borrow them. And then to get my vines going through here, green garden hose. With the vining over the top of it to disguise it, but I wanted something that a little heavier. So that's Laura and Brant. And then the Small House of Uncle Thomas piece at the end. A lot of Asian staging techniques where people dressed in black would bring things on. And so now lightning and rain are coming down on Eliza as she's trying to get away from King Simon of Lagree. And there she is with her little baby George, and then the carved Buddha in the back made out of styrofoam. And so a few odds and ends of things that just don't normally come up. And there you have it, folks. So, so the whole idea of set dressing and finding things like that, we've been given a number of pieces from people here at the Cedars that we've used over and over and over again. And then things that we find, finding the bargain bins at Lowe's and Home Depot when things are on sale, discontinued, or it's missing one shade. I thought, well, if I need a broken one, then I can use that one. So, so all kinds of things like that. But dressing the set, for me, that's the fun part. And the kids don't interrupt. They said, oh, Rick's dressing the set today. Leave him alone. And that's when I just start bringing stuff up in the basement and hanging pictures and doing flower arrangements and that kind of stuff to finish it. It usually takes a couple days to dress a set. So.
Rick, how about the clothing? Where do you get that?
Depending on what it is, if it's period stuff, we try to make it. That learning how to do all that. Contemporary things, try to pull from what we have or borrow. And then we keep getting things from people on a regular basis. We get donations all the time. The most difficult thing is men's period suits prior to 1960, because men wore the pants out. They wore the suit till the pants were gone. And you've got all the jackets, but no pants. And so to find a man's suit that has both the pants and the jacket in good condition are very hard. The other thing, and that's the other problem, is that kids today are big. That, yeah, we were just talking about this the other day, that kids that I grew up in high school with that we always made fun of because they were fat, and you look at their yearbook pictures, they're not fat.
They used Una Yoder's mother-in-law's black shoes for a long time.
Yeah. There's a number of dresses that were Una's that we have in the department that Wilbur called me and he said, Una was always kept these aside. These are nice costume pieces. And so he gave me those before he left the house. But yeah, so there are some pieces like that we've gotten. And some of them are, yeah, we've got some gorgeous things from the 30s and 40s, but you have to be this big around to fit in them. Women's dresses and stuff. 2 times ago we did The Sound of Music. One of the women in the show that played Elsa, the Baroness, was thin enough and she could wear them. And they were all in cream and white and jerseys and cut on the bias and stuff. And I thought, yeah, okay. And for a while I had a really good relationship when Deb Kramer had Carrie Lynn's bridal salon downtown. And she would call me. And first she gave me wedding gowns that she couldn't get rid of. And she said, how about you pay $10 a piece for them? I said, I can do that. And so it was something with her accounting that she said it was better if I got $10 than nothing. And so I would go in and buy 2 gowns of the same fabric. Didn't care what they looked like as long as they were the same fabric. Because then I could recut the skirt and then have enough material from the skirt to the second one to make a new bodice. And it would be the same fabric. And so I would do things like that constantly. And she would call me up and say, Rick, I've got all these shoes and gloves and headpieces. You can have all of them for $100, but the trick is you have to take all of them. And so when we did Grease the last time, some of those shoes were all dyed to match the girls' dresses. And so there have been some really nice things like that. When Morris & Sons got out of the business of renting tuxedos, they called me and said, here, Rick, you can have them, but you take all of them. And so I had all these pieces that we couldn't use, but college kids love weird clothing. And so they've used them. We had a lot of white dinner jackets that I used to cut off short and then take this part and add it for tails and put wires in them for crickets and March hares and Mad Hatters and things. So some things like that you can have a lot of fun with costumes. When we go to New York, we have an alum, Katie Sue Nichols, that manages a costume house in Manhattan, and she put me onto some places to go buy things. And so a couple times I've bought trims and fabrics and things in New York and had them shipped back. When we did Hello Dolly, I bought all the big hat frames in New York City and had them shipped back here. And so you need to know in advance what's coming up next so you can do those kind of things. Buy most of my fabric now down at Hancock Fabric in Wichita on the west side. The east store is hard to find your way around, but the west store is really nice. And they know me now after all these years. And they just leave me alone. They just give me a table and let me go and just start pulling fabric and doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's always a good learning experience to have a student go with me and have them help buy fabric and the kinds of things you need to look for when you're buying fabric for something that's going to be 30 feet away. It makes a huge difference. So, yeah. Yeah, Steve.
Would you share a bit about your upcoming season?
Oh, sure. Our first show is the end of September. It's called The Heir Apparent. It's by David Ives. It's a fairly new play, but it's written in the style of a Molière comedy from the 1700s. It's all in rhymed couplets. And so the kids actually say that's easier to memorize when it's rhymed like that because you know what's coming next. But they make references to Cadillac cars and guitars and all kinds of things in it. And it's a story, it's the old man who's very, very wealthy, in love with the sweet young thing, and his nephew wants his money, but he also wants the sweet young thing, and yeah, it's one of those kind of fun things. And that'll be done in Mingenbach. And we start on that on August 18th. Second show is a Broadway review, and JD has named it his miscast Broadway review. So people that wouldn't be singing the songs they're supposed to be singing are singing them. So there's a woman singing, I am I, Don Quixote, the Lord of La Mancha, from Man of La Mancha, sung by a woman. He has women doing Officer Krupke from West Side Story, and guys doing Hey Big Spender from Sweet Charity. So the miscast musical review. There'll be a couple numbers from The Lion King in it, one from Bonnie and Clyde, and so I was talking to somebody the other day, there's a musical, Bonnie and Clyde? I said, yeah, it was out about 2-3 years ago. It's got some great music. And so picking songs from shows that we wouldn't necessarily do the whole show, but there's some really nice music in some of these shows that you don't know much about. So that. Then in November, we are doing California Suite. And as long as you don't tell anybody, what we really want to do is take parts of Plaza Suite, set in New York City, and California Suite from Beverly Hills, and London Suite. And it's JD's directing class will be picking those. And so it's going to be the same hotel room, but we'll change the outside accoutrements to match where it's at, whether it's in New York or London or Beverly Hills. So there's that one. Then, yeah, because that one, every act is a completely different story set in the same hotel room. And so, it's, yeah. Then in February, we're not doing anything in January because the choir and the band are going off to Europe. And since we share most of the same students, our pool of selecting people will be much smaller, so we're not doing anything during January. So our next show is in March, and it is On the Verge. And it's a story of 3 women explorers. It starts in the 1880s, and they're exploring unknown territories, terra incognito or whatever it is. Yeah, whatever. I just design them, I don't write them. And they are exploring things, and as the show progresses, you find out not only are they finding new lands, but they're also going forward in time. And they end up in the 50s. And they 2 of them finally change their clothes in the 50s and want to stay. They want to get off. And one of them doesn't. And she continues on. Really, really neat show. Fun thing. And there's one guy in the show, and he plays 8 different characters. He plays a man who's been lost during a war somewhere in Africa. They run across him. The Abominable Snowman, they run into him. The dragon lady with all of her long fingernails, they run into her. And then Gus, the guy that pumps gas at the Esso gas station in LA, is there. And then Nikki, who owns the nightclub that the two ladies want to get off and stay with Nikki. Fun show. And that's going to be done in Mingenbach. Yeah. And then the last show is The Foreigner. And Addie Johnson, who will be a junior next year, will be directing that. And that'll be done in Brown. And it's a nice box set in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, someplace in the South.
What determines whether you do them in Mingenbach or Brown?
A lot of it is what's going on campus and whether the others, who wants to use the other spaces. I like Mingenbach. I like small spaces that have problems with them. I don't like designing on a stage where you can do anything you want to, because then what do you do? And so I'd rather be given a space that has problems with it. And Mingenbach with the concrete floors and the bars over the ceiling and things like that are some real problems, and you've got to keep the exits open, but you've also got to be able to get the actors on stage and off stage, and to me that's much more fun to design, trying to figure out how do you get all that to work. So yeah, so it really depends on the time of year and what else is going on. We know that that homecoming is always in Brown Auditorium, that we try to stay away from Christmas in Mingenbach because everybody wants it for parties. We stay away from Mingenbach from the end of April on because it's always used. End of the year things and different clubs, organizations wanting to use it. And so there are certain times that it's better for us just to be out of one space or the other. So, yeah.
I know casting isn't your department necessarily, but can you talk about how casting is worked through?
Okay. If it's a show that's been selected by a senior and their senior project is acting, they get to pick the role. Okay? And that's agreed upon during their junior year. And they get 2 wild cards with that, or 1 wild card. Somebody they want to work with or somebody they don't want to work with. And they can put those people in. They can't tell which part they get. I just want to work with this person. Or, please do not put that person, I'm tired of working with them, I don't want to work with them anymore, kind of thing. And so if it's one of those, then there are some parameters already set up. We pick shows based on, do we have the number of bodies that could do them? And so, especially looking at musicals, do we have the number of women with the right ranges for those roles, and men, just sheer numbers of bodies, not specific people, but just numbers of bodies. So, yeah. And then it's just, yeah. JD is real big about casting people who wouldn't necessarily get that role. And I try to do that too, of doing colorblind casting, not worrying about what color the people are or whatever. He likes to do overweight romantic leads opposite each other once in a while, just to throw things off. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's a learning experience and it's educational theater. So yeah, but yeah, I like to mix it up. We haven't, for a while we did lots of shows with kids in them, and we've kind of gotten away from that. And I'd like to go back and get a few more kids involved because it really helps with the community. And I also like using people from the community in shows. Not students, but people from town to come out and do roles periodically. Yeah?
I think it's nice once in a while when you do a combination with the high school like you've done sometimes.
Yeah, that was when we did Children of Eden was the first one. And that just worked out because that was a show I've always wanted to do. JD's always wanted to do it, and Cindy Marion had always wanted to do it here. And so we just got to talking one day. Would you ever think about doing this? Because she approached us because we had talked about it. Well, how about we do a show with the high school sometime? And then then we did Music Man together, and really some good relationships between the high school kids and the college kids developed during that one. And so now it's, yeah. We don't want to do them too often because then they get tired of, all the roles go to, you have to pick shows that both groups can be in. And so, like, are there enough major parts for high school kids and enough major parts for college kids? And are they going to be mad because it's, yeah. So you don't want to step on toes on that one.
I have another kind of question.
Okay.
That has to do with recruiting college students.
Okay.
How does your department participate in that?
Our big one is that we used to try to do recruitment days where kids would come and audition, but that never worked. Because every high school has, I've got a show this weekend, well, I have a show that weekend, well, I have a show, I can't come. And so now we say, you come, this is what we want to see, we'll audition you whenever you want to. But our big recruitment piece is every January, the first weekend in January, the State Thespian Conference meets in Wichita. And so high school kids from all over the state come, and seniors can audition for college representatives. And they have 3 or 4 acting auditions, and 45 kids can go through those. They each have a minute and a half. And you sit and you have callbacks, and you can bring them back to your table and talk to them. And then they have one section that's just for tech students, people who want to be stage managers, lighting designers, set designers, costumers, and they have resumes and notebooks and portfolios, and they show you what they've got, and then you can call them back and talk to them. And we've gotten a number of students out of that. But yeah. One of the most bizarre things that ever happened, a student got a job teaching at Goddard. We never had students from Goddard, and he wasn't one of our best students. Well, we started getting kids from Goddard. All of a sudden, about 2 a year would come from Goddard. And so getting students into different areas, doing the show with the high school, opened the door like, oh, it's okay to stay in town and go to college. There's a good program out there. And so things that we didn't think would happen have actually opened the door for us and have gotten us some nice relationships. And now the teacher was at Goddard, is now out on the East Coast. But another woman was there, and I was doing a workshop, and she had kids come up, and she liked the way I designed sets. So she wants to keep sending kids up here. So who knows what it is. Yeah, Marsha.
Rick, how many students do you have working on a set, like in the workshop throughout the week or weeks? And is that part of a stagecraft class? Is that just volunteer? How do you work your student out?
Years ago when I was a one-man department, and I was always feeling sorry for myself because I had to do it all. I got the college would not hire a second professor. I said, how about hiring me some student workers then? Because at that time I had one student to run convos and things in Brown Auditorium. And they said, oh, student workers, they're cheaper than faculty. And so they gave me student workers. And so I would hire 3 or 4 kids in the costume shop and 3 or 4 in the scene shop and 2 in the costume shop. And then at my height, I had 14 kids working for me, and they said, Rick, that's too many. So pull that back. So we have 7 to 8 paid staff that work, and then try to have a stagecraft class each semester. And then those have a limit of 16, 18 students in them. And then those kids help build the shows those semesters, the sets, and hang lights and do that kind of stuff. And so a lot of this stuff is built with kids who've never done it before in their life. And my job is to figure out how I can keep all of them busy at the same time, doing similar types of things so they all learn what they need to learn. But yeah, so it's a combination of all that.
And then getting the students to help with dinner theater, which is a wonderful thing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and that has really, helped us a lot. That's where we get the extra money so we can do some of these things, like buy the furniture for $800 from Kyle's Discount, because a First Nighters brings in a lot of extra money for us since we don't have to pay our help.
Yeah. Rick, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been fun.